Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to a little video just as a tribute to Brian Dennehy, who died age 81 in April. I'm going to talk about the film To Catch a Killer, which is perhaps a little bit unusual in Dennehy's career. He has over 180 credits on theatre and TV movies and films. He's been in loads of things, strangely enough, from First Blood to the Jack Reed detective TV movies to Peter Greenaway's Belly of an Architect, Terrence Malick's Knight of Cups, the FX films with Brian Brown, one of my personal favourites, Bestseller, directed by John Flynn with James Woods, tons of other stuff. He is a solid, dependable actor who is probably always overlooked because he's not flashy. He usually plays tough, gritty guys who want to know the truth, and he always brought a kind of everyman quality to his roles, but he also brought a kind of decency and an honesty to his roles, which obviously makes To Catch a Killer a little unusual. He did play villains, but this one he's playing John Wayne Gacy, one of the more famous American serial killers. Gacy is believed to have killed at least 33 young men, teenage boys, in Chicago in the 70s. He was finally caught in 1978 and spent 16 years in prison before he was executed in 1994. While he was in prison, he painted kind of Disney-like paintings. He painted images of himself as Pogo the Clown. And John Waters and Johnny Depp are amongst the celebrities that have some of his paintings in their possession. So this film was a TV movie. It was a two-part TV movie, so it's about 182 minutes. It's two 90-minute parts, essentially. And it stars Brian Dennehy as John Gacy. The actual name John Wayne Gacy. I don't know whether it was to not offend John Wayne fans. But he's just referred to as John Gacy in this a lot. Margot Kidder is also in it as a psychic who helps lead them to the case. The cop is played by Michael Riley, who's an actor I'm not really familiar with. But this is really Dennehy's film. He only appears as Pogo the Clown, I think, once during the film. But it is a fairly disturbing scene when he's at children's hospital. And he's playing his famous handcuff trick, which he used to do on his victims. He used to lure them into his home with weed and porn and get them to somehow induce them to do his handcuff trick, and then he would sexually assault them and kill them and bury them under his floorboards. In actual fact, a lot of them, he had a construction company and would essentially get them to dig holes in the crawl space under his basement, and essentially they would be digging their own graves. Nice. So this is partly a procedural, and it works pretty well as a procedural. And one of the issues that people sometimes have with serial killer films is it's all about the serial killer, and the victims are pretty much just forgotten about. It would be quite interesting to have like a serial killer film which kind of celebrates the victims and shows the victims' lives. And then the serial killer is just a kind of little bit at the end. Oh yeah, all these people were killed by a serial killer. Sometimes as a society we do kind of get a little bit too obsessed about serial killers, and certain films perhaps don't celebrate them but certainly sensationalise them more than they probably deserve. But this film doesn't do that. Brian Dennehy gives a grounded performance. You know, he doesn't chew scenery, because despite their sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, generally these people are frighteningly mundane and frighteningly normal. Gacy obviously lived a spectacularly double life. He was married twice. He was a member of the Democrat Party. There's a famous picture of him shaking hands with Jimmy Carter's wife. He had this social persona, did work for charity, but in his private life he was killing teenage boys. So the film, at 182 minutes, it is actually quite riveting. Again, because of Dennehy's character, because his performance is so good. Again, it's perhaps a little bit against type. You know, he did play villains and heavies, but not to this extent. You could argue that Michael Riley's Cop, it could have did with a little bit of a stronger actor. But you do see the effect of the case on this cop. The fact that he just went after Gacy and the emotional toll that took. You know, again, Gacy had friends in the police department. He was always kind of around the police and happy to help up to a point. But then this detective, and just being dogged and continually being on his tail, eventually kind of broke him down. Yeah, I mean, Dennehy gives a really threatening performance. At times he does kind of get that empty eye look of a soulless, deadless inside killer. For ages, this film, you couldn't actually find it, and then all of a sudden this Umbrella Australian DVD seemed to have appeared, and it's readily available now. It's kind of weird. It was made in 1992. It might not be Dennehy's finest film that he was in, but if you want to see a different side of Brian Dennehy, it's well worth your time. Yeah. So please leave the comments below if you've seen To Catch a Killer, or what your favourite Brian Dennehy film is. And we should all just take a moment to thank him for his work, because again, I think he is one of those overlooked actors, you know, who doesn't have movie star looks and isn't flashy, but you always knew who you were getting with Brian Dennehy. Solid actor, and by all accounts, a thoroughly solid human being, unlike John Wayne Gacy. So thanks very much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again for more videos. This is Solitude Ronin from Solitude Ronin Films saying farewell, and watch out for clowns.